What's up, people? Welcome to the channel where we talk about music production, music licensing, and music business. If you love any of the previously mentioned, be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date on all my latest content and hit that bell icon so you know exactly when that new content drops. So listen, today I have a special guest for the podcast. The Music is My Business podcast. His name is Eric Copeland. He's a full-time composer and educator based in Orlando, Florida. And an amazing channel talking about, music licensing, stock music, and just his whole music licensing journey. So I brought him on to talk about that. And man, Eric, welcome to the podcast. How's it going, man?
Thank you, man. It's going great. Beautiful day here in Orlando. Another blue sky, hot day in the
Yeah,
June in
nice.
Orlando.
Indeed, man. Yeah, I know last time I was in Florida, last few times, man, the humidity definitely took me out. It's different, but I'll take it, man, over the northern winter weather of Ohio.
Yeah.
So, man, I guess talk about where it all started for you. Did you start off as a musician? Did you always want to do music? Like, where did it begin for you?
It began at the beginning. My parents were music people. My dad was a band leader and trombone player and singer.
Mhm.
And my mother was a full time organist at our church for 40 plus years. Plus, she taught piano at the house. So
Mhm.
it was just the thing that everybody did in my house is music.
Wow.
My brother was a 40 plus year professional drummer with band after band after band and was just in a band recently that got signed.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it's a musical family. And from the minute I was a kid, I have literally pictures of me as a kid with a microphone in my hand. When people came to my house, we didn't play hide and seek or spin the bottle or whatever. We recorded shows.
Yeah.
We were just taping and on cassette and recording. And then my dad had a reel to reel Sony tape quarter is what it was called, and it did sound on sound. So he also had a grand piano and microphones, and so I would just write. I started writing songs when I was 13, and real soon, when you start writing songs, and then and people start saying, "Wow, those are pretty good."
Yeah.
Even if it's your family, like my dad was like one of my biggest fans, but people or your friends go, "Hey, that's good." And so early on, I knew that was my thing. I just
Yeah.
knew from my early teens that I was a songwriter. And so, of course, I thought being only about 3 hours from Nashville that I would just would become a songwriter and get a music publishing deal, and that
Yep.
would be my life. And so I kind of aimed towards that and just wrote songs, wrote songs, wrote songs. But I didn't really write what people wanted. I just wrote the pop little ballads or whatever, and later started writing jazz.
Mm.
And Nashville was the wrong place for pop and jazz, especially in the 80s and 90s. It was just not what they were looking for. They were looking for either country
Mhm.
or country or contemporary Christian or something like that.
Yep.
And what's funny is I ended up making a whole production life in contemporary Christian that I still do to this day,
Okay.
and did end up eventually moving to Nashville after starting a studio in Kentucky in the Lexington area. And then eventually, I had some adventures in Chicago for a few years, and then I came down to Lexington and met my wife, and kind of put out a business cards and everything, saying I was a composer, producer, arranger,
Mhm.
and learned what a computer producer was from another producer who also produced a lot in gospel,
Okay.
more in Southern gospel and stuff. But I wasn't interested in that.
Okay.
I wanted to make contemporary music, and but I just from my background growing up in church, it just all kind of fit that contemporary Christian music was going to be what I did. And if you're a good enough artist or producer, eventually people are going to go, yeah, that sounds great. Can you produce me? Can you make my music? Because that's what they really care about is their
Yeah.
own music, and less of what of your stuff. They want
Yeah.
what they want, as you know, with clients. They are focused on themselves, and
Absolutely.
so. But I took it and ran with it, and eventually built a production business that I took to Nashville, turned into a label called Creative Soul Records um, that was a very strong website that, man, at one time, I think at the heyday of that website, it was getting 50, 100,000 hits a year from people wanting to come to Nashville and record their music in
Wow.
this small little genre of contemporary Christian music or gospel music.
Yeah.
And so, and plus, they wanted to come to Nashville and be in the studios. They wanted to come work with the Grammy winning engineers and stuff like that. And I kind of lucked in. The very first guy I met, really, and some of the people were the higher up people in that genre. And so I
Hmm.
kind of just, I never really produced a huge artist, and none of my artists ever became huge artists. But I was like, what was the guy? Who's the actor that everybody does the thing with, where you're so many Kevin Bacon? You're so many degrees from Kevin Bacon or something like that. You ever heard
Yeah.
about that? Well,
Yeah.
I was like 1 degree away from anybody because of the musicians and engineers that I worked with in the studios I worked with. So I always had the great players for whoever you want to say it was, whether it was uh, Kirk. Uh, uh, who am I thinking about? Uh, the Winans or Stephen Curtis Chapman or
Yeah.
Amy Grant or whoever it was in that particular genre. And
Yeah.
so I had all their players. And later on, all these players started playing for people and still play for people like Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins and Peter Cetera and all those guys who have moved out from LA and now live in Nashville. So
Yeah.
I have all these guys who are just top. I mean, they are the LA people from '80s, like Jeff Porcaro and those kind of people. When you think of those musicians, they
Hmm.
are that quality in Nashville, and they've been doing it for 20, 30 years. So that's been really the key to my success, is finding great musicians,
Hmm.
great engineers, and great studios, and then just using them for my clients. And that turned into a 6-figure business that lasted for well, until now. Still, I
Yeah.
do a lot. I work with 15 to 20 clients at a time, if
Hmm.
not producing them, at least guiding them and consulting with them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, man. I feel like because we kind of similar backgrounds growing up in church, and I feel like that in itself is you learn so much in being a musician in church and being around that atmosphere. And me, I know me personally, being a drummer and then eventually playing keys, keyboard, and things like that, and organ. Sometimes when I was younger, I didn't really like the organ, man. I thought it was like for old people.
Same.
But it grew on me. Like when I matured and I got good on keys, then now I have a new appreciation for the B3 specifically with the
Yep.
Leslie. Love that thing. But I feel like there's elements of improvisation, and especially in gospel music, it's intertwined with so many different other genres of music, and I feel like I've been able to use that experience a lot in sync licensing, being able to jump from genre to genre and give these different styles, because in church you're exposed to those many different styles. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, in contemporary Christian, there are many genres inside of that. So I've worked
Hmm.
on everything from, I currently have a metal client that does Christian metal. I've worked with this reggae lady who's originally from Jamaica, and she's lived in Brooklyn the past 40 years. But that lady sells more records than anybody, and
Wow.
she's older than all of us. And she'll go to the islands and she will sell all her Christian reggae records that I make with only MIDI. I don't.
Yeah.
There might be real guitar in it, but sometimes not.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fake guitar, and I will produce that all MIDI, and she will do the vocals, and we'll do background vocals, and people eat it up, and they
Yeah.
love that reggae Christian stuff. It's contemporary. It's whatever it is.
Yeah.
I've done country stuff. I've done pop, a lot of pop and rock. I've
Hmm.
done everything you can think of, every style, bluegrass, everything even inside of that gospel boundaries.
Yeah.
So that has same. It's really helped me become a great, or I should say, successful at getting into libraries where I can bring them tons of different kinds of styles that they need for their library. And I've done everything, like one library, I've done everything from positive pop to classical piano sonatas to um, I'm finishing up a contemporary country record right now to
Hmm.
um, Latin jazz to, I mean, it's just all over the place,
Yeah.
And classical Christmas and stuff like that. So it's
Yep.
because, not because I'm like so great. It's like I'm lucky enough to have all the great people that I can go to for all those things.
Yeah.
And my personal styles are more on the jazz and anything related to piano, because I'm a piano player and a keyboard player. So
Nice.
I live in that world where I would rather be on a piano or a Rhodes or something.
Yeah.
Not necessarily B3. I can play B3, but that's a special talent to
Yeah.
really
It
be able
really
to dig
is.
in on B3.
It really is. Yeah. You got the
And my church
pedal.
was not playing a B3. My mother was not playing a B3 in my church. She was
Yeah.
playing the dun, dun, dun. Her feet were going, and
Oh
we had the
yeah.
pipes and everything. So
Pipe
it was a
organ.
big Baptist church, Southern Baptist church, but it was back in the hymn days and stuff before
Gotcha.
contemporary. So yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm a big contemporary Christian kid, and contemporary Christian and contemporary gospel. I never really liked the old school, the hymns and things like
well, I like
that.
hymns.
I appreciate them. I appreciate them, but growing up, I wasn't interested in playing them. You know what I mean? So, uh,
Neither was I, and I am now. Like
yeah,
I've just produced a whole lot of different hymns records that I'm trying to sell
really.
to libraries, and so and they're all ambient or they're all different. I take them and I just twist and turn them around and turn them
Mm,
into other things. And I had an idea for I've got a whole album of Amazing Grace, and it's
really?
just like, because if you hear a song on a TV show, it's a
Mm,
Christian song,
mm,
and it's at a funeral, it's going to be Amazing Grace. It's going to be on bagpipes. It's
yeah.
going to be some kind of version of Amazing Grace. Somebody's going to be singing Amazing Grace. It's the only song that apparently they think that people equate
Listen
with
to
funerals or
funerals.
Christians.
Yeah. That's
So
so true.
I just did a whole album of it, all these different styles of it and versions of it. So I'm pitching that right now. But
That's smart
um,
though. Like that is really really smart because you really leaned in and paid attention, okay, what's being used in these kinds of scenes all the time. So it's like if you
mm,
know something is being used all the time or a specific song, go in and create multiple versions of and covers of that to be used in different situations. That's brilliant, honestly.
you need to
Um
watch a lot of TV if you're
yeah.
going to do this. And luckily I do.
Yeah.
So
Indeed. Man, so wow. Okay, so you grew up in church. You got that the Nashville experience, which a lot of great music comes out of Nashville. I feel like I feel like a lot of great songwriting, and I feel like the emphasis on great songs
mhm,
and
publishing and
compositions, yeah, come out of Nashville. So that's super dope. And you just like a lot of other musicians, have this dream of getting the big publishing deal, and now you're just writing full time for all of the greats. When did you kind of make that shift and realize that you don't necessarily have to go that route to be able to make a living in music and do it, in a sustainable way?
Yeah, because that publishing deal finally did come, but it wasn't with a publisher; it was with a library, and
Ah,
so that big break did come. But I was, after we had moved down here to Florida from Nashville,
mhm,
I was still doing everything I was doing. So I was driving back and forth all the time,
mhm,
back and forth. And at some point, I was listening to a podcast, and there was a lady on there talking to whoever was doing the podcast about sync licensing,
mhm,
and she was talking about the incomes that sync licensing made. And again, this was at least 6 years ago, so this was probably 2017, 2018, when and it's not even as big a buzzword as it is now,
mhm,
licensing and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
But it just totally clicked with me. I'm like, that's where I need to go. That is where, because I knew that my production career, my work with clients was, I'd been doing that since for 20 years. This is the 25th anniversary of my record label that I've been working for other artists and producing them and stuff.
wow,
That's
congrats.
enough. That's enough.
Yeah,
That's that's a long time.
it
I don't know
is.
what the future of it's going to be, but I do know that at that time I saw it and I said, that's the next thing for me, is really licensing and creating the music that I want to create for the people who need to use it in shows. And I create that kind of stuff. And I have the crew in Nashville and all around the country now that can do that. And I can find singers everywhere and different things like that. And there's lots of great singers here in Orlando that I've used and stuff like that. So
Mhm,
um, I just knew that was the direction, and that became the shift towards developing, instead of Creative Soul Records, my other company. It's called Positive Spin Songs,
Okay.
which is my focus on my licensing. It's mostly positive, still keeping kind of a, not necessarily Christian or gospel, but keeping a positive kind of stuff, because most placements want positive music. They want
Yep.
upbeat, happy. Not, I mean, it's not that I don't do anything in a minor key, but I'm talking about. They want that music that can, and especially when I heard this interview, she was talking about most of the ads are going to want upbeat, major key stuff.
Yep.
And so, as a matter of fact, I just had a use in Germany of one of my songs, and it's a boppy little ukulele singing, tune. And um, so that's what I call my company, and that's really become my focus production wise. And I've kind of slowly started to gear my clients away. I mean, we could still make things for them, but I'm like, why not do double? Why not double dip? Why not do a single for yourself that you can also pitch to libraries and stuff like that? So
Exactly.
it's kind of become my new business is working with my clients and finding clients that are interested in that, and not just, some aren't, some
Yeah.
are, don't have any interest in putting their songs and not having any control on where their songs go,
Right.
but not many. Most are
Yeah.
like, yeah, whatever. And
Yeah.
so if there's that, and especially if there's back end, which none of them want to go out and do gigs, so they better have some kind of back end. And
Yeah.
and so and they can't sell CDs anymore, so they've got nothing but pennies coming in from Spotify. So they're like, yeah, okay, I'll take some kind of upfront or back end. So
Yeah.
that's been the kind of changeover over these past 6 years. And about, I guess it was 2020 when I got my first. I just kept studying the marketplace and studying, watching videos, Jesse's channel,
Hmm.
Sync My Music, and other places, and just said, okay, I'm going to do some research and find some libraries. And so I sent some. I did what you shouldn't do. I sent the same email to 5 or 6 companies in one
Yeah.
in one morning,
Yeah.
and luckily only one got back with me. Actually, several got back with me, but they weren't interested. But it led to relationships that they said, send us more. We're just not looking for this right now. But
Yeah.
another one said, yeah, I'm interested. Send me a bunch of this kind of style. And so I sent them a bunch of that style, and that was my first contract that I signed. And I've since signed 6 or 7 other albums with them, and that continues now. And
Hmm.
then I got another kind of more known library, and I don't usually throw out the exclusive libraries, but I work with a library called Scorekeepers, which I think is pretty much it's kind of like it's almost a mix. It's an exclusive music library, but it's online.
Okay.
Anybody can find it. Of course, anybody can find any of these, really,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
they do their research. But
Yep.
and then another library came along where I found a guy, and I pitched. I got a country album, of all things, country album in with him. So I'm
Okay.
in 3 or 4 right now, and yeah, like you, I'd like to have 5 or 10,
Hmm.
to the point where I've always got, and as it is now, I've got enough to do as far as for sync. I'm just getting through this country album right now,
Yeah.
with everything else that I do, and this YouTube channel, and my new kind of job that I have. Um, so yeah, and through this whole time, I decided to go back to school. And
Wow.
so there's that whole journey where I just said, I had 119 credit hours from going to UK, going to school up in Chicago, and then I came back, and some boy said, you have 119 credit hours. You only need one more hour for a degree. And I was like,
Why
well, maybe
not?
I should look into that. And so I took but my problem was I took a music history course,
Okay.
see if I could handle it while I was in the middle of probably making the most I was making producing at that time in Nashville.
Okay.
And I went to MTSU and took a class, and I fell in love with music history. And then I fell in love with all the music stuff, but especially music history.
Yeah.
And I ended up finishing up a bachelor's there in music history. And then I said, I think I could teach. I think I could add teaching as an income stream, because
Yeah.
I do want to teach.
Hmm.
So that's when we moved. But around that time, we had decided we were done with winter, like you were.
Yep.
Done with winter up here in Kentucky and Tennessee. I don't even care. I just don't want to see the leaves go off the trees, and I don't want to see gray skies. And so we moved to Orlando. We had planned it for years, decades,
Yeah.
and so we finally moved down here, and that's when I went and got my master's, and which I
Nice.
finished last year. Yeah.
Wow. So you have a rich background. Because I get asked a lot from producers, like, should I get a degree in music? Is it necessary? Like, with you having 2 degrees, you got the bachelor's and the master's. Do you find that that has helped you in your music career?
Yeah, definitely. I'm writing stuff now that I never would have written had I not done my master's, especially in composition. And I've
Hmm.
already pitched 2 albums and had albums accepted that were basically stuff that I learned from studying music history. I never would have
Wow.
known what a piano sonata was,
Hmm.
and get a whole album of piano sonatas licensed if I
Hmm.
didn't study that stuff, because I didn't know the difference between Bach and Beethoven,
Mm.
and I was and other people that I worked with or knew did, and I didn't like the fact that I didn't have that knowledge. Knowledge is knowledge. Knowledge is power, as we
It
say.
is.
And
Yeah.
I like to have all that knowledge so that and music history is super interesting because it's basically our same history now. Stuff that's happening now happened 300 years ago, and
Yeah.
Mozart lived the same life as you and I did, trying
Hmm.
just to hustle his butt off to all that kind of stuff. That stuff just really interests me. The parallels. But um, as far as music theory and stuff, I know my friend Dave just did a great video on, I mean, a great podcast on music theory,
Hmm.
and how that relates to, do you need that to create cues or to live a life in music? And
Hmm.
I have to agree, it's good to know the mechanics of how everything works. Yeah, you can be great at working on cars,
Yeah.
but if you don't know volts and you don't know how computers work and all those kind of things a little bit, you got to go to school and study that stuff so that
Yeah.
you not only have a natural ability to fix cars, but you have a natural ability to understand why it all works
Hmm.
together. You don't have to know and think in Roman numerals all day long with music, but it doesn't hurt to know the background. And when you get to Nashville and you do the Nashville number system and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't hurt to know all that stuff. And so now I kind of get to teach all those basics to people, which I think is really important at 18 to 25. I just
Yeah.
wish I had done it. I wish at 18 this self could go back to that self and say, just get a music degree.
Yeah.
Just instead of skipping all the time and writing songs up in the piano room, just get a music degree, you
So,
know? So
sounds like my college life.
that's all I did was write songs. I had the best time. I would go up and play those big grand pianos, and I'd be singing and writing songs. Next room, somebody's playing their bassoon or something,
Yeah.
and I'm in there writing pop songs and skipping class. So
Yeah.
probably a music class. And so now I just try to get people to take it seriously and learn that, get that basic
Yeah.
knowledge early. It's only going to help you if you have any goals to do music in your life.
Hmm.
Go ahead and go to school and get some music stuff. What else are you going to do? Philosophy? I mean, how is that going to help your music career? If you love music, parents ask me this all the time. Should
Yeah.
my kid go to music school? I'm like, do they have any interest in anything else in it? Now, if they say, yeah, chemical engineering, I'm like, well, maybe he could take minor in music and go get the chem engineering degree, because it'll
Yeah.
lead to a big job, and he can
Yeah.
then
Be able to
buy all the
fund.
gear he wants. Right.
Exactly. Yep.
We all started
Um,
out in IT that paid for this music career, right?
Yep, exactly, man. And it's, man, dude, because so many people, so many people push this, oh man, just hustle and like grind it out and until you make it. But it's like, man, it's okay to go out and get established in a good career, because you put yourself in a more comfortable position to where you don't have to make horrible decisions and sign horrible deals, because the bills are taken care of. Now you can reinvest back into your business, and then everything that you have coming in, you're able to reinvest it directly back into the business versus eating it all up on bills and food and all that stuff. So you're able to grow faster by kind of having that. Man, so it's funny because you talk about getting the degree and the things that you learn, and I also feel like it also helps you communicate better. When you're talking to a library or someone, it could be a composer that's working on a film, and they pulled you in to do some stuff. Now you kind of know some of the same terminology, and you're just not completely clueless as to what they're talking about because you have that background in music. So I definitely think that's dope. I remember in my college career, I didn't major in music because they didn't have like I wanted to major in like something production, but they didn't have that, so I went with kind of like it was like a consumer what was it, consumer marketing services degree. But I did take some, history of jazz courses and some
Yeah, I took that too.
music. It was some other music course that I took, but music. It was a music business course, which was really good. But yeah, it never hurts, man. Never hurts to get that
Well,
knowledge.
and I'm in a place now where I teach at a recording school. Basically, they offer different degrees, kind of like Full Sail does, where they offer recording, but they also offer graphic design. They also offer video production.
Okay.
But I work only in the recording arts section, and my job is to teach 101 and 102, and I love that because
Mhm.
I teach them everything from what where how computers and audio came together, the
Mhm.
history of recorded music from the phonograph to now, and
Wow.
then get into Pro Tools. We teach them Pro Tools. We're just learning Pro Tools right now, and then once we get Pro Tools down, and we do just a little bit of they do a lot of mixing and stuff, and then automating and effects and all that kind of stuff, and then we jump into Logic and we get into Logic and then they are like, why didn't we go with Logic for the first place? But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation because they got all these loops and plugins and everything
Team
to deal
Logic.
with,
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm a Logic guy too. So
I
I'm
love
like
it.
with them kind of.
Yeah,
So, but when they're in Nashville and they go to do an assistant engineer job, they're not going to see Logic. They're not going to see FL. They're not going
true.
to see Ableton. They're going to
Hmm.
see Pro Tools sitting in front of them, and they're going to be expected to run it
Yep.
fast and well. And almost any major studio you walk into, that's what you're going to see up there because that's the recording software. Um,
It's
but anyway,
industry standard. Yeah.
and then after that, we get into song structure and trying to teach and drum into their heads verse and chorus. You'd be
Mhm.
surprised how many beat makers, how many students who come in, how hard it is for them to understand the AB structure.
Yep.
But they need to know that because that's the main structure.
That's it.
There's other music structures. There's AA, there's strophic and AAA, and 12-bar blues and stuff like that. But the problem is nobody's using those. Mainly, we're writing pop songs with a verse and a chorus and a verse and a chorus and a bridge and a chorus. And so, trying to teach them that kind of stuff, and then. And after all that, we get into music theory, which probably should be first, but we go through just the regular music theory stuff, and teach them a little bit of Roman numerals, a little bit of Nashville number system. But
Yeah.
again, basically, this is a note. This is how many beats a quarter note is, and stuff like
Yeah.
that most people just don't know. But we don't get into it too far. And a lot of them are like, I want more music theory. I'm like, well, you need to then go to some other college and take a music theory course.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just all about getting people to understand what you need for any job any person you might run into, any job you might get hired for,
Yeah.
from radio, for TV, studio, music studio. If you're communicating, let's say, just with another person online or across town, and they come from a music background and you don't, it's good that you both know what a whole note is, or what a structure is, and things like that. So,
Yep.
at the very least, this school, to their credit, they try to give them an education. And I love this. I took a class like that. It was called Music Theory for Non-Music Majors. And
Mm.
it was just the stuff that you really will kind of need. Probably got like a C in it, probably because Scott didn't go. But now this is kind of what that course is, music theory for recording, people who want to be in recording, or they want to become their own beat makers slash musicians slash artists, whatever.
Yeah.
And so this kind of course is kind of fun because it talks about all those things. And then they go into recording and stuff. But I do think it's good that everybody has that basis. And so at the
Yeah.
very least, go on to Berkeley or someplace and take a music theory class, and just a beginning music theory class. You can get them free on YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube University is a great place to go. They're here now.
Yep.
You're here now at listening to us talk and teach you things. So
Exactly.
you can find out about music theory and history of music and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
it does help. It does help
Yeah.
in your career.
Yeah. It can only help, man. So, man, dude, this is good. So, before we get into, I want to get into where you are on your music licensing journey.
Yep.
But before we get into that, because you mentioned this a couple times, and I'm super interested because you mentioned this Nashville number system. I
Hmm.
know I use a number system as a musician, especially playing with the band and communicating. But what is the Nashville number system? Because I don't know what it is, but it sounds super interesting, so I'm interested to know.
Okay, so that's interesting to me. So, and because I think of Atlanta and Nashville as kind of linked, where it's kind of Atlanta is kind of like Nashville's cousin
Yeah.
in music production. I know so many people in Atlanta who are musicians who either come up to Nashville and work all the time or whatever. So, I
Yep.
feel like more than almost any city, Nashville and Atlanta are linked as music centers type of thing.
Yeah.
With Atlanta being more centered in the hip hop slash world a little bit more, and
Absolutely.
but there's a lot of the people who I've worked with in the gospel world who are also in Atlanta,
Yep.
again, in the black gospel side of things, or the
Yep.
urban gospel side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all down there. Like Reach Records, I believe, is down there and stuff like that.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Exactly.
um, but the Nashville number system is pretty basic: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The end.
Okay. So
It's if we're in the key of C, C will be one. If we move up to the next chord that we would play all on white keys, it would be a D minor. And so we would call that a two minor. And
yeah.
then if you go up to three and you just play a simple three minor, like all on white keys, it's going to be three minor. And
Well.
then four is just going to be four.
Yep.
Five is a regular G is going to be five. A six minor is an A minor in that same, if we're walking them up, still on all white keys. The
Mm-hmm.
easiest way to teach this is white keys because you can just walk right up and teach all these. And
Yeah.
then A minor is going to be six minor because it's the sixth note
Yeah.
of that scale. And then seven is going to be, um, technically, if you just play all white notes, it's seven diminished, but we're going to usually we use a seven flat, like a seven flat major, like a B flat major, or we'll use what I call a 5/7, which is a G over a B,
Mm-hmm.
stepping up to go back up to one. And
Yeah.
so, and the reason why this exists is because it was developed long ago for country players who did not know any music theory, and they couldn't read any music notes, and they couldn't read any music charts. They didn't know an A from a Z. And so they didn't know that what things were. They just knew how to pick. And so they developed this number system to say, here's the way it is. And if you start on this note, that's one, and then we're in the key of C, you play a C. But if the singer decides that the key is too low and they need to take it up to D, we just move one up to D. And now D is one. And
Yep.
then E is two. And so the chart stays the same. So we don't have to change the chart, especially for easy songs like country songs. We're using 1, 4, 5s, maybe a six minor and a two minor, and that's all you're using.
Right.
It's really easy. When you get into stuff where you've got six flats and all these diminished things and going on, and a lot of sevenths and 11ths and all that kind of stuff, then I'm going to write a letter chart. I'm going to
Yeah.
write a C, and I'm going to say, oh, well, that's A minor 7, but it's also got a 9 in it and stuff like that. I'm gonna probably write more of a letter chart, instead of numbers. But when we're talking 1, 4, 5, 6, 3, and I mean we're talking pretty simple pop or simple country or simple worship music. I mean, which is like 1,
1,
5,
4.
6, 4 or something like that over and
Yeah.
over and over for hours. We're going to use numbers as
Yeah.
much as possible because it's just faster to write down, and it's faster to see the arrangement. You can just look at it and say, "Oh, this is 1, 4, 5 all the way through." I only
Yeah.
play three notes, as if you're the bass player. So, and like I mentioned, if I'm playing a G over a B, it'd be 5/7.
Yeah.
And so there could be things over things, just like there'd be a G over, it'd be a G over B if we looked on a regular chart. So
Yeah.
that's in just a quick kind
No,
of thing is the Nashville number system.
that's dope. No, that has been I never knew what it was called, but that has literally been a game changer for me because when I started playing keys, so I learned to play by ear. So I didn't know any music theory. I knew, basic, the letters, the scale. But I didn't really get into a little bit of theory until later on, but the number system was how I knew where to go, knew how to communicate with the band. If the bass player said four, I knew what the four was, no matter
Hmm.
what the key was. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So that has been super super huge, and I always ask people now. It's just like, the number system, because I can explain this better. I can just call them out immediately, and you'll
Hmm.
know exactly where to go. But that's super interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
And in theory, man, learning even a little bit of it, and learning some of that structure definitely helps. I think that's one of the biggest places I see producers struggle when they're trying to get their music placed in TV and film, and create that placement ready music, is the structure. That ABAB, that I still use to this day to create tracks for music. And knowing the difference between a verse, a chorus, a bridge, and things like that is
Hmm.
really important. Um,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
got a composer channel that I kind of started before I got this job that I was
Mhm.
going to kind of build as a sister channel to because my channel is just filled with talking to people about making music income, because I think that's the most important thing. That if you're going to make music and you want to turn that into and everybody wants to make money with it. They want to
Yep.
figure out how it can it be. Everybody comes to me. My dream is just to not have a job anymore and make music only. I'm like, well, you better get to work,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things you can do to make music income, but you're going to have to work your butt off to do it, and it's
Yep.
going to be like a job. So you might as well get
Yep.
used to it. So, being that person myself, that's what I teach. But I kind of have a heart, after doing a master's in composition, to talk about composing and talk about songwriting, and because I'll have students or artists walk up to me and go, I started this song, but I don't know where to go with it. I've
Yeah.
written a chorus, but I don't know how to write the verse. Where do I go? I'm like, well, you started on the one, you started on C, and then so why don't you start the chorus on four?
Yeah.
And that just like a light bulb comes on there, like, oh, you know what, I could sing there. So I think that's to me, that's something very interesting to do. Now, whether I'll have time to keep that channel going along with this channel and everything else and all the other balls up in the air, we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Indeed. So let's get into where you are now in your music licensing journey. You talk about making music income. And I know licensing has been a big part of that. Where are you in this licensing journey right now?
I'm in the middle part, and this is something that I'm excited to talk about, because I know there are a lot of people who are at the beginning. They haven't even started yet. Some
Hmm.
of them don't even have their music chops ready yet. Some
Yeah.
of them do have their music chops ready, but they haven't approached libraries. Some have approached libraries and gotten those first responses. Some have got songs signed, and now they're trying to see if or they get songs signed and they don't get put on the library right away, and they're waiting.
Hmm.
And then there are people who've got the libraries, the stuff in the libraries, and they're waiting for the people to find those songs and use them and make money. I'm about there. I'm about at that place where I've got 100 to 200 songs out into libraries,
Hmm.
and I'm either waiting for them to matriculate into the library and start being used,
Hmm.
or they're already in there, and I'm waiting for TV shows like this show in Germany
Hmm.
this week that is about farmers finding wives.
Wow.
It's like The Bachelor in Germany, except for farmers. It's hilarious,
Nice.
but but this is what you're going to run into. I've
Yeah.
also had some Christmas placements and things like that, but I'm at the beginning. I'm at first page of TuneSat, if you know what I mean. I am
Okay.
only seeing a good dozen to you know 20 placements so far.
Okay.
I need, and of course you want to get, and 100 or 200 is a drop in the bucket as far as songs that are
Yeah.
out there in libraries. You need to have 10 times that, I think, to start
Man.
really seeing consistency, at least from what I've heard and heard on your channel and other people's channels. And
Yep.
so I know that's my goal, is to get to that place. Some people think of that term and they go, 1,000 songs. I can never write 1,000 songs in 2 lifetimes. And to those of us who have been doing this all our thing, we're like, it's just a matter of time. I
Yeah.
just got to crank. And so that's where I am. I'm in that place where I'm just, I remember Jesse's channel. I remember seeing him talk about seeing 14 cents as his first one, and he finally
Yep.
got a placement. And he sees that 14 cents. I'm kind of there. I think I saw that on the last BMI statement, a couple pennies here and there off a placement here and there.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm waiting for more albums to get into the library, to get on these libraries that can be found by TV shows and music supervisors and stuff. And
Hmm.
this German show and some other things is the start. Of course, I won't see anything from that as far as back end. I don't know if there'll be any front end on that, because there is sometimes front end and there isn't front end sometimes,
Yeah.
right? On sync fees for TV.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but as far as BMI, it could be 9 months before I find out
Yeah.
what I hear on that. So it's such a long game that's where I am in it. I am in it. I am creating all the time. I'm finding more. I'm getting more. I'm asked for more albums, and continue to create those albums and get those out there, and then get to that place where maybe I'm making $100 per BMI check, and then
Mhm.
getting to the $500, and then maybe to the $1,000. That's where I am. I'm in it. I'm in the middle of it, but I'm not in the
Yeah.
sexy making a lot of money part yet. I'm in the,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm not really making anything part in this. But I'm cool
Man,
with that, because uh, that's just the process. And
it
I
is.
think everybody who watches this or watches my channel needs to know you're going to be in that process somewhere, and every part of it is fine. You could be up to where you are. You're still not done. Even though you're at a place where you've got good income coming from it,
Right.
you'd still like to see that next level as well. And
Yeah.
so my next level is getting up to closer to 500 songs in libraries,
Yeah.
and then getting seeing TuneSat go crazy every month,
Yep.
and all that kind of stuff. So, and I'm cool to wait for that. I have time. I'm going to keep making these albums, and like I said, I have so many other incomes that are placeholders for now,
Hmm.
and hopefully that one day will be the retirement slash whatever I'm going to be doing I after I reach that age.
Yeah.
That'll be that income.
Yeah, that I mean, that's awesome, and I'm glad you said that, man, because I like to give producers and composers and artists realistic expectations. Like I come across people and I'm like, what's your biggest goal a year from now? They're like, I want to retire like my family and my parents. I'm like, whoa. Let's just start with getting into a library. Let's start with buying a cup of coffee. Like let's just start with that, because
Yeah.
it takes time, man, and it is a long play. It's not something that you kind of hop into to make money real quick. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And can it happen? Yeah, you may run into an opportunity where there's an opportunity, or you just happen to know somebody who's working on a commercial spot and you may see a decent payout. It can happen, but the majority of composers, especially in the music library production music space, it's a long play, and it's a numbers game, and you're building that catalog up so that you can see and reap the fruits of your labor, years and years from now. You know what I mean? But you
Mhm.
have to put that upfront work in. You have to be okay with, creating music, submitting it, and not knowing if it's working or making you any money for a while. And you have to continue to keep creating and submitting before you see anything. And that's where a lot of people fall off, is in
Yeah.
that stage, because they're like, I'll submit 2 tracks and I'll see if I make any money before I really go all in. And you can't do that. You have to kind of go all in before you know if it works. So
I think a
man,
lot of people also look at this and they go, "Well, I have to sign an exclusive deal, and in some cases in perpetuity with these songs that I'll never get to use them for anything else. I'm not doing that. I don't sign my songs away."
hmm
But if I hadn't done that, I would not be getting these things. Plus, I think it's again holding your little babies too close. You can't be so precious with these songs. You've got to let them go, get
hmm
them out making money for you, make more music. There's more music to make,
yep,
and then be patient. And that's all music. If I hadn't been
yep,
patient from when I was 13 writing songs, and the other thing that I can't teach, and you can't teach, and nobody can teach, is fire in the belly. I
yeah,
can't make people want to do this forever. I
hmm
can. Some people walk into this and go, "Oh, I've written a song or two. I could probably do that," and that's what I'll do. And then after 6 months go by, they're like, "Ugh, this just seems like a lot of work, and I'm giving my songs away. I'm never going to hear anything." And then they just go, basket weaving sounds fun, and so they go to another thing, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to start water skiing now. But I just think that those of us, or those people who will Just say, this is the thing. I'm going to keep on it. I don't care. I'm going to keep getting better. And I think the only downside I see to channels like ours is that we might talk people who are not talented into jumping into these things. Now, I think anybody can become talented.
Right.
I don't think talent is you're born with talent. You're not born that way. Let's just say it that way. You can develop talent. I've seen great singers develop. I've seen terrible singers develop into great singers. I've seen not songwriters develop into great songwriters. And so with the right team, I think personally, I think in music licensing, you're going to have to step up to another level of production versus like stock licensing or royalty free stuff or stuff like that. You're going to have to employ people. You might have to go out. Hey, 80% of what I've put out there, I've paid musicians in Nashville to play on because I know the competition is tough. I want to beat that competition and get in. So.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Because they're looking for, they're replacing tracks that are on the radio from major artists. They just don't want to pay the money that it costs to use those tracks. So, indeed. So, man. So, what was your initial approach to in getting started? Was it through music libraries? Was it through sync agents? Like or stock sites? What was your kind of initial approach to start getting your music working for you?
It was libraries because of the company that I went through and talked and kind of did a course with. They were pushing libraries. Actually, no, they were pushing, getting relationships with music supervisors and sync agents and stuff. But then I started watching videos that talked about music libraries, and music libraries fit my old goal, which was to really get stuff, quote unquote, published, which means somebody is going to take your music and do something with it, and make money with your music. And for all I did, and for all I still do, as far as all the jobs I do, working for clients and working for teaching and doing my YouTube channel and writing my own stuff, I need somebody working it. I don't have time, which is why I have messed around with Taxi a little bit, because you think, oh, that is going to be a possible answer for me to supply songs to someplace and they'll do something with it.
Right.
I probably don't feel that way as much anymore. And I'm probably a little bit more I would rather spend the money on Clint's book and just do some nice, some short emails and find libraries, because that's how I've ended up finding them. To be honest, I haven't gotten anything from things like that, like pitch opportunities that you pay for play and stuff like that.
Right.
I've not seen personally any success there. I've seen more success having great material that I pitch personally through a short email to a library. And that's how I've gotten my deals. And that cost me zero. Except for the production that I did and the time. But as far as the reach out and finding those people, it cost me zero. So, okay, now where was the question? I've now walked into a rabbit hole.
No, you answered it. You said you started with the music libraries and just reaching.
Yeah, and I sometimes will talk to somebody like we talked about Tamara Bubble in our other interview, and I've interviewed her on my channel, and she is like a pastor. She will get you fired up to go out there and start your own sync agency and approach all those people. And I think some people like her can do that. I mean, you have done that a little bit, and you have some of those. But I don't have time for all the networking and all the relationship building that takes.
Right.
I kind of did that for my production career. I went to Nashville over and over till I found the engineers and the players and all that stuff and built that whole thing. I don't have time for that now. I think I just need to find some libraries and let this stuff go on autopilot and make me money rather than bust it. Now, that's not saying that in later years I might not go and meet to Taxi rallies or to music supervisor get-togethers or whatever and try to meet them, but libraries is the way I'm going to do it, I think.
Yeah. Nice. So, like, did you have a goal, like a certain number of libraries you wanted to be signed with? I know you mentioned a little bit about it earlier, or were you just reaching out to as many as possible and just kind of seeing, who would bite? And what did that process of reaching out to them look like? Did you just send an email, a phone call? Like, what was your approach?
First of all, even before that, I think it's important to tell everybody that I started creating top-notch content before I started that that thing. I
Okay.
have pitched my whole life since I was a teenager, and I've gone to Nashville and I've sat behind the desk with the guy and I've given him my cassette with 3 songs on it and him go,
Mm.
yeah, not what we're looking for.
Yep.
So I know the music publishing game. I've done it all through my life, and I've been told no, it's not right for us, blah blah blah, because it
Mm.
wasn't right for them. I wasn't good enough. I didn't have the songs they were looking for, and my production wasn't good enough. So when I decided to make the switch, I knew my production was there. I knew
Yep.
it was what it needed to be. Um, Fire, as my students will say.
Yeah.
It was
Indeed.
fire. But for me, I just knew it was high quality because I was working with great Grammy-winning engineers and great top players, and so
Mm.
and great singers from Nashville and stuff like that. So I knew the stuff was all going to be there.
Yeah.
Then I had to gear it towards what I knew that companies would need, what they would need for TV shows, what they would need, and I particularly I don't do trailers. I don't do. I really focus on songs,
Okay.
like complete songs that people can use for montages and for whatever uses or ads or things like that. Songs
Okay.
that have hooks, songs that are songs,
Okay.
not scores, not trailers and things. Personally, that's just what I wanted to do,
Okay.
and because I'm a songwriter, really, when it
Yeah.
comes down to it, even though I consider myself a composer too. So I did that first. And then I said, okay, now that I have these songs, I want to create a bunch of positive songs that would be great for that. And
Mm.
then I started looking for those libraries and started really researching those libraries, even taking a directory like yours or whoever might else have a directory like that and finding a company. You still need to go to their website and see if they have songs on their library that are like the ones that you have.
Right.
And so I looked for those libraries and I did research and then said, okay, I'm going to approach this one and this one and this one and this one because it looks like they take this type of music, and they have nice websites. I'm kind of very picky about what websites I will like look at. If I look at their website and it's trash, I'm like, no, I'm not sending
Same.
anything to them.
Yep.
And so, because I'm a website designer too, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. That's if you're not going to put work into your website. And what's funny is the first library who signed me, I wouldn't say their website is like super great, but
Yeah.
the relationship is really great.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that said, that was the way I did it. I just looked up these libraries. Some of it was Google, some of it was a directory, and then just found. Usually, though, it's more magical than that. You just hear about a library somewhere, somebody's talking about online, or somebody's talking about a person who's, and you're like, let me check out their site, and it turns out that's a site you should submit to. And a lot of times, that's how I've found the libraries because I saw a video or I was watching, I was studying. If you're watching this video now, you're
Yes.
studying, you're listening to every word, saying your true believers are already they're still in this interview all the way now
Exactly.
till now, and they're listening to every word and writing it down and saying, oh, I got to do that because that's what that guy did, and he's now at that place where he's got libraries. And
Yep.
so that's kind of the story of how I did it. I purposely decided that I was going to go towards sync music and use the same quality musicians I used for all my productions that was making me, six figures as a producer, and turn that into focusing that music, and still am on making songs for licensing.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome, man. And you dropped a major gem in, you know, like immersing yourself into the space, the topic, like obsess about it to where you're soaking in so much content, videos, podcasts, books,
I still do.
interviews. Yeah, same here, man. And it's like people wonder like, well, how do you like find these opportunities to learn this stuff? It's like literally like I'm listening to it all day, and like you just come across nuggets and you start putting the pieces together and things work out, and then you find yourself being in these conversations, being in the rooms. I know Clubhouse was really big, going to the sync rooms, and then you're able to take advantage or be in the place where people who are doing what you want to do are hanging out and having a conversation, and then you end up getting pulled into some of that stuff. So that's really, really, really major. Man,
I
and
mean,
then
that's kind of the reason why I started my YouTube channel, Make Music Income, because I just wanted to be in the discussion.
yeah,
I wanted to
that's
be
it.
talking with everybody, not just to teach them, but to learn from all of them,
Yep.
including the Jessies and the Daniel of Stock Music Licensing and people like that, and my podcast partner Steve Biddall.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said his name wrong, Stephen Bedall. But Steve and I do a podcast every week, and we talk about all this kind of stuff because we're both just composers trying to make music income.
That's
And
awesome.
so all that was done so I could just continue learning because I learn from every person who says something to my channel, and so do you.
Yep.
And when I come home at night, I'll sit and turn on YouTube for an hour and
Yeah.
just watch all my channels. I'll listen to podcasts all the time. I've been reading Keyboard Magazine, Electronic Magazine since for 30 years.
Yep.
People say, "How do you know everything?" It's because I just read everything. I
Yep.
watch everything. And that's just what you got to do.
Yep. Indeed. And what's the name of the podcast again, so people can check that out?
Podcast is the Make Music Income podcast. It's on all the major podcasters, including Apple and Spotify. And yeah, we've been
Nice.
doing that. We're up to getting close to episode 30.
Nice.
Um, yeah. And so, yeah, Steve and I have a good time doing that.
Yeah, man. The podcasts are awesome. I'm a huge fan. But yeah, man. So nice. So man, we're talking about the beginning stages of the small royalty checks, and they're growing. Man, let me tell you, like I've been there. I've had the 14-cent royalty check, and I've seen it grow over the years. And it's funny because it happens almost exponentially. You know, it just slowly starts to grow, and then you'll see a dip, and then it'll get a little bit bigger, and then it dips way down, and then it's just up and down. But to be able to see that growth is really it's really something to look forward to. So if you're in the trenches and you're in the beginning stages, just don't give up. That's what separates the people who see success and the people who don't. We just simply don't give up. And just keep cranking out dope music. Like Eric said, man, focus on the music, the quality of the music, and naturally people are going to want to use it. And then focus on serving. You said something else earlier that was really, really good, is you were trying to figure out what those companies needed, like what they needed, not what you wanted to make, what you thought was cool at the time, but what does this company need? Because that's what we're in the business to do, is to serve clients' needs and give them what they need. So that should definitely always be the focus, and not really, about what you want to do or what you think is cool all the time.
Or, I mean, I kind of approach it in both ways. I make what I want to make,
Yeah,
but I only pitch what I've made to the companies who are going to want that
there you go.
thing.
Yeah, that makes
Because
sense.
I think you got to make it fun for yourself. You can't otherwise. Listen, I've been a music producer as my job for 25 years, and I'm I'm at the end of producing music for other people that they want that I don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make my own music the way I want to make it from my brain, and then I'll find the companies that want to use that. Unless, of course, one of my libraries says, I need a country record. And I'll go, all right, I'll do a country record for you. And
Yeah,
so and then I go but still I get to write it, and I can write the kind of country songs I want to write.
exactly.
And I think you have to do it that way. But yeah, you do have to serve. This is all about serving. And if
Yep.
you're not interested in serving, then you're not going to do well on a YouTube channel. You're not going to do well with
Anywhere.
music. You're not going to do well anywhere with your music. If you're not serve, because even if you're a performer, you have to serve that audience. You have
Yep.
to serve them and give them what they want. Because if it's all introspective, it's all about you, you're probably not going to have as much luck in
Yeah.
anything.
Indeed, man. So that's awesome. So you're working on a book, and I don't know how close you are to being done. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what the purpose is in writing that, and what kind of inspired it, I guess?
There's going to be several books, but this is the first ebook that I'm kind of releasing on this Make Music Income. I've done ebooks before.
Hmm.
Some of them have been free. Some have been like I had a few for my last business where I was writing it for music artists, sometimes Christian music artists, sometimes creatives. But this book is totally focused on stock market, the stock. It's actually called The Stock Market, and
Okay.
it's about how and why and who and where to find the libraries to submit your stuff for royalty free music, and sometimes non-royalty, for sometimes exclusive, but
Hmm.
mostly in the stock, what we would call the stock music place. Like they would get stock photos, they would get stock videos, they can also get stock music.
Okay.
Personally, I consider this music Now, it's not that I don't have highly produced music there, because some of the stuff I haven't got signed that I made to get signed to exclusive libraries didn't go there. So I ended
Mhm.
up throwing it into these stock libraries, and they've made me money. Some
Yeah.
songs have made me lots of money. Some of it is my own personal music that I don't want to send out for license. Some of it is stuff that I specifically make, like holiday music, or just made some patriotic music, for the holidays. Those sell well every year, and people always come back and get those again. Um, and or anything else that I can make in here without having to hire a musician. I don't have to spend any money except my time to make stuff. It's mostly all MIDI or my voice or my clapping or anything that I can do, and I'll put that in there. But I find that the question I get so many times on my channel, which we do talk about stock licensing on there, even though stock licensing's taken a bit of a dip this year, I think. But
Mhm.
um, and that's a whole nother conversation in video. But
Yeah.
the bottom line is, people want to know where to find these libraries. They want to know where the direct pages to go through. It's kind of like your directory that you have of music licensing companies, and probably some of these are on it.
Mhm.
But um, this is specifically for stock music, for royalty-free stock music. Where to exactly find those pages,
Mhm.
what I think of those libraries, just a kind of a brief thought about them, and
Yeah.
what experience I've had on them. And I was going to make this into a course, but dude, this stuff changes so much. Motion Array completely changed the way they teach people. They pay people in January. Pond 5 changes with the
Yeah.
wind, what it's doing, and just added a new subscription service that now is a thing. And
Wow.
Audio Jungle will close, it just it. So I've just determined it's making a video course would be too much reshooting,
Yeah.
and so just because of the way things change. So I thought it would be easier to update an ebook. So that comes out probably this weekend. I've kind of got a video. If I get it shot, it's Wednesday. We'll see if I get it shot for this weekend. But
Okay.
I'm weird. A lot of times we'll release videos on Sunday for some reason, and so if I get it done, but it's going to be part of a my series on this. But I just think people need to know where to find these libraries. So I'm going to be in that video suggesting my ebook,
Mhm.
and kind of doing a push for the ebook. But I'm also going to be talking about directories like yours,
Nice.
and people just have an easy way to go, because some people just want the easy way. That's why
Yeah.
they choose taxi. That's why they choose libraries. That's why they choose, we talk about all the time in our class, music in general, even music consumption is all about convenience. And so
Yeah.
this video is about convenience. How can you get started in stock music? Well, and get your music out there fastest? Well, this ebook will help give you all the links to go right there without having to do any research. So that's
N-
kind of the point of it.
Nice. That's awesome, man. Super dope. Well, listen, man, I know you're super busy. You got a lot of projects you're working on. You're helping, up and coming producers and composers and students learn, how to produce quality music and record and things like that. So I won't hold you, but man, like what's leave the people with I guess an inspiring message that that'll keep pushing them forward if they're getting started in sync or and trying to make income with their music.
If you want to do music and you're serious about doing music, there's one thing that you can do that will continue through your life to put you ahead of everyone else doing music. And that is to keep doing music. I can't stress this enough. I will give students this speech at the end of uh, each semester, or whatever the little time we have together is, and I will tell them, and I will say it several times, and I'll keep bringing it up on the screen. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. The people who aren't doing it are people say, "Yeah, I messed around with music for a while, and it didn't work out." Well, that is not going to cut it. That's not the way Clint and I roll, and why we've been successful is not because we just picked it up last year.
Yeah.
We've been doing this our whole lives. There's been, even though we've had other jobs, music has likely been at the forefront of our minds, and how to, and I don't even know if the goal was ever to make full time income off music. It was just
Hmm.
to do music more. And yeah, sure, you'd like to get income from it. Sometimes it can be a real job. It can just be a regular job, just like a job, and
Yeah.
you can just be slaving away. But at least you're doing music and you're doing something you want to do. So the number one thing is keep doing it. Always keep doing it. Don't give up. Even if you feel like you're right now, no one's listening, keep doing it. That's the difference from now till later. The second thing is to keep doing it. No, I'm just kidding. It is really the second thing.
I know, right?
But the other thing I want to leave people with is that you are probably good enough, even if you think you're not.
Oh, that's
And
good.
I tell my students this at the very beginning of every time I speak to a new room of students. I will say, each of you is good enough to do this. If you think you're not good enough, and this other guy who has stuff on stock music is better, is good, and he knows everything, he doesn't know everything.
Nope.
He's just doing the best he can do and making his thing. Now, those of us who've been in the industry for 20 years, yeah, we may know more than you, but it doesn't mean that you're not good enough to do this. You can be good enough to do this. It's just going to depend on how much you work to do it,
Yep.
and how serious you take it, and how much you keep doing it more than everybody else. And
Exactly.
that's to me, that's the easy answer, you know.
Yeah. Gems, man. Gems. Man, so tell the people where they can find you, where they can learn more about you, your channel. Where can they
Sure.
go?
Main channel is makemusicincome.com. That's the website, or you just go to youtube.com/makemusicincome, Instagram.com/makemusicincome. Everything's Make Music Income, because it's all about making
Nice.
music income. That's that's that's
That's the
that's what the
thing,
whole
right?
channel was built around. I was shocked when I thought I had that idea like last July. I was like, man, there should be a site just about, different kinds of ways you can make music income. And I
Yeah.
looked around and there was nothing. I'm like,
Wow. I love
I'm
it.
grabbing it,
Yeah, yeah.
doing it.
Nah, it fits you
And
well, man. It's
so
a
it's
great channel that highly recommend. I was checking out some of your videos too the other day. Really, really good stuff, man. Great
And I just talk
information.
from experience. I'm not trying to sell this ebook. I've been really struggling if I'm going to sell anything or not. And so I'm going to sell this ebook for not much, but
Yeah,
that's not really the goal of the channel. It already is monetized. I make money from it just by ads and stuff.
yep,
And I've had some sponsored videos already. So I don't need to make money. And it'd be hard to turn that into as big a money maker as my client work or what the school pays me. So I'm not going to really worry about that. But
yeah,
I am just telling you what's happening on a daily basis with me, and a weekly basis with me, on all these things. And so if
yeah.
you're interested in finding out how to make music income, I'm talking about it.
Awesome. Well, Eric, thank you again, man, for joining me. And this has been a dope conversation. And man, I hope it's inspired the people out there. And yeah, man, I appreciate you coming through.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
No doubt, man. Take it easy.